Hello there, Jay here, and today I'm going to talk about probably one of the best comic book movies in recent years, The Batman. And this is a spoiler review, so if you haven't watched the movie yet and you don't want to be spoiled, click off the video and come back when you have watched the movie. But if you have already watched the movie or you just don't care about the spoilers, feel free to continue on watching. So The Batman is a detective story that takes place during the second year after Bruce takes on the vigilante role in Gotham City. And the story follows him as he tries to solve the murders and riddles left behind this character called the Riddler. So, if you have been following my Twitter and Instagram accounts, you will see that I have posted a short non-spoiler review of The Batman a few weeks back now, and by now you will have known that what I think about this movie. I truly enjoy it and I really like this movie. So let's get into what I like about the movie. So first off, what I enjoy about this movie is that it feels so grounded in reality that it feels realistic. I could totally see a character like the Batman existing in our world, in maybe in some city in the world. I could totally imagine that, and that is how realistic this whole setting and the whole tone of the movie feels. And that probably is what makes me relate to the movie more, because a lot of the themes, a lot of the events going on in the movie is actually what is happening around the world. I mean, corruption is a thing, laundering money is a thing, crime is a thing, smuggling is a thing. A lot of the crimes and a lot of the corruption going on in the city is what make the movie feels a bit more real. And I applaud the movie for going there, really. I applaud them for doing that, for going dark, for going realistic. Because frankly, I think this is the type of movie that the world kind of needs these days. And yes, this is a dark movie, sometimes very dark, and it really pushes the PG-13 rating at times with some of the scenes, with some of the story they're going for. But they do manage to tread on the line, so it's still okay. And besides from the tone and the setting, the acting was amazing. Robert Pattinson, he has that kind of depth with his silent acting, and he conveys so much emotions just through his eyes. There's a lot of silent scenes where the camera just focus on the actors or actress face and let them do the work, and I applaud the director for letting them do that. Not only Robert Pattinson, Paul Dano as the Riddler. Oh, that was amazing. You think that the Riddler was scary enough with his mask on? Ah, I tell you, he's even more scary without his mask. But yeah, aside from Paul Dano, Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman was pretty good as well. And yes, Colin Farrell as the Penguin, even though he wasn't in the movie that much of the time, he was enjoyable as well. So basically, the whole cast was given time to shine and to do their work, and I like that a lot. As for the cinematography and the shots of the movie, as I mentioned earlier, there were a lot of slow, quiet moments where the camera just focused on the actors or actress faces to let them express their emotions, and by doing that, it also allows me as an audience to feel the emotion more better. And because of that, the pacing of this movie was slow. And of course, the runtime was long. I mean, it was almost 3 hours, but it needed to be that long. It needed to be slow to build the mystery and tension. And I mean, this is a detective story, and you would want the audience to feel the suspense, to feel the mystery and tension. And at the same time, this movie not only builds on the mystery, it not only introduced these characters, it also introduced us to the entire city as a whole. And I think this is the first comic book movie where I really felt like the surroundings, the environment that the characters are in felt so alive. Like you can say that Gotham City itself was a character, and that affects the experience a lot. Like it affects what you feel through these characters going through this thing in this city, and that is what makes this movie so engaging for me. And back to the pacing. The pacing, while slow, it felt consistent, and really it felt natural, and I didn't really feel the drag at all, because in my opinion the movie needed to be this slow, and while it was slow it also builds up the mystery well, so I wasn't really put off by the long runtime. And as I mentioned earlier, with the slow pacing and the runtime, the director managed to find the pace, to find the balance, to do the world building well alongside with the character building, the storylines. The movie really managed to balance all of that well, so it doesn't feel rushed or it doesn't feel cut short. And besides of that, about the runtime, it was almost 3 hours, like I mentioned before. And to be honest, in the end of the movie, I kind of felt that it was shorter than what it actually was, but that is a good thing, because I was engaged, and this movie really keeps me at that. So I actually like this movie a lot for its runtime, and because it needed to be that long. As for the action in the movie, there was a lot of raw, brutal violence. It wasn't really action sequence that you see in a normal Marvel movie, where there's a lot of the spectacle, there's a lot of the wows, a lot of the all. This movie action was more grounded, and it isn't a bad thing, because this movie was already so grounded in reality. You want the action to feel that way as well, and it fits. And you can feel the punches, you can feel the impacts of each action. And the camera work around the action was done so well as well. You can see the action happening. And sometimes for the more brutal one, the camera doesn't focus on it, but they let you hear it happening, so your mind can feel in by itself without actually showing you what is happening. So for the action, it builds towards the suspense quite well as well. So yeah, the action was pretty good. And as for the score, Michael Giacchino is really becoming a big name himself in Hollywood. He's done Star Wars, he's done Jurassic Park, he's done Spider-Man No Way Home, and now the Batman. And as for his soundtrack in this movie, the main term for the Batman is actually quite simple. It's just da 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 da, 3 notes. But while it's simple, there is depth and variations. The theme keep coming back, but it's with different variations, so that it doesn't feel repetitive. Of course, it will feels repetitive in some ways, but in some other ways, the variations are there to make it feel different from one and another. And he managed to craft like 3 different themes for the characters: the Batman, Catwoman, and the Riddler. So when each team play, you know which story, which character we are following, and I think that is a good thing. But yes, the score is quite good, and the score also works well when it's building those tense, suspenseful moments. So yes, the score was really done well in this movie. As for the stories and characters, I think I will tackle this topic with 3 characters, the 3 main characters of this movie: the Batman, the Riddler, and Catwoman. And while the movie is titled Batman, and most of the focus is certainly on Batman, the movie also balances these 2 other characters with him, the Riddler and Catwoman. And the movie managed to create a balanced act between the 3 characters, and they are all related to each other in some ways. And in some ways, they actually has the same origin. I mean, of course, their origin is totally different, but they has the same sort of start, which is the start from trauma, the start from tragedy. Bruce Wayne's parents were killed in front of him by a mugger. The Riddler basically spent his childhood in an abandoned orphanage that was left to rot. Selina Kyle was traumatized by his father, and she watched her mother die in front of her. So they are all messed up characters. But this movie shows how each different characters kind of deal with that trauma. And ultimately, that is the theme of this movie, I think. The theme of the movie is to find a way to deal with our own trauma, to deal with our past, and how to move forward. And so, while this movie tonally is very dark, it's depressing even, but in the end, with the way the story plays out, it's like there's a glimmer of hope breaking through that dark slowly, with the Batman, with Bruce Wayne finally realizing that he needs to change, he needs to let go in some ways. And that was a very emotional arc for me. So this movie kind of hit me emotionally. But while I'm not sure that many people had the same experience with me, but for me, the experience was that I was emotional by the end of the movie. I was moved in many ways that I didn't expect to be, and that is a very good thing. So yes, the movie did keep me emotionally attached. While this movie has a lot of good points, unfortunately, it's not a perfect movie. And there are some stuff that I was mixed about. And maybe they are nitpicks, but I just think I need to mention some of the flaws that I pick up on. And I think really there is just one, to be honest, with the entire movie. And that is that scene with the Riddler and this unknown prisoner at the end of the movie, where the Riddler has already been captured, where the Batman already has rescued the people from the flooding. And that scene with the interaction between the Riddler and that prisoner, I think it felt very unnecessary and out of place. It feels abrupt. Maybe it will work better as a post-credit scene, because placing the scene right there just interrupts the pacing a lot. Of course, the acting was incredibly good. The entire tone that it was going for, it fixed the movie, but pacing wise, it shouldn't have been there, because I think that it just ruins the ending a bit for me. While it is a good scene, but it wasn't suitable for the scene to be there. So overall, I thought that the Batman was excellently done, and it is the best comic book movie out of all the comic book movie that I have seen so far. It beats all the MCU movies. It beats all the DC movies that I've seen so far. I haven't watched all of them, but yes, so far from what I've seen, the Batman is probably my favorite and it's the best for me. I'm sure, however, that we are going to disagree, because we are all different people and no one completely thinks alike. So if you want to share your thoughts, feel free to do so in the comment section down below.